I have watched my story live and then die about 5 times, but this time it's going to be different. If you don't know who I am, hi, I am Gachapion. I'm a digital artist, merch artist, and general internet person. I'm also the mind behind Jailbird, a now sort of multimedia project, I guess, centering around an alternate universe of animal-human people and the prison inmates of Troasian's minimum security prison who inhabit said universe. It's a slice of life, drama, a little bit of action, all mixed into one, that begs the question, can we really leave familiar places behind in pursuit of a better self, even if we're not really ready to? Jailbird is the personal narrative I've been working on for what is coming up to about 5 or 6 years now, and follows a band of minimum security prison inmates in an alternate universe just trying to make their way through life and end up better people at the finish line, which has sort of reflected my personal journey from being a teenager into early adulthood. However, as you probably gathered from the intro, I haven't been very successful in bringing Jailbird to life yet. I have tried 5 times, with varying formats, but nothing's ever really truly felt right. The characters didn't look quite right, the story wasn't correct, or I was just at a point in my life where I couldn't give Jailbird the love it needed to truly thrive. Before we look at what Jailbird has become, or what it will become in the future, I want to show you my previous attempts and why I think they didn't work. The Jailbird webcomic launched on September 1st, 2020 on both Webtoon and Tapastic before only moving to Webtoon shortly after. The initial prologue detailed Hal's conviction of arson and his arrival at the facility. One glaring issue right away is my cluelessness and lack of research when it came to the judicial system. I don't blame 16-year-old me for this, by the way. This was my first big project I was ever tackling, so it wasn't going to be done perfectly, but the lack of consistency in location and the knowledge of the system had pretty much harmed my writing from the start. They do say don't make your first project your biggest project, and that's something I still sort of feel on the fence about, because I don't think I would have learned as much as I have from this experience if I put my time into making an entirely different narrative. I did make smaller comics and projects around the time, mainly for college, like my ice cream truck comic, my MacGuffin game project, my anti-hero project, etc. All of these did actively feed back into Jailbird and help me improve Jailbird as it was slowly chugging along in those first couple of years. And I mean slowly, by the way. I only finished the prologue, chapter 1 and chapter 2 in 2 years. Chapter 3 came out on Global Comics only about a year after, and my god, you can tell a year passed. My artwork improved a lot in this time. But between chapter 2 and chapter 3, I was being pretty challenged at university from a creative angle. I was learning more, experimenting more, and discovered a love of processes such as printing and collage, and these manifested themselves into the only 2 parts of chapter 3 I ever made. Morning After and Autumn Apples. Actually, I think I started working on a 3rd as well, but it never came out. It's a shame because in my eyes, this was where the plot really would have gotten going, but I just never made anything else after this. I started using The Sims for backgrounds on a more abstract level instead of just copy and pasting with a filter. I was editing them and drawing over them to make them fit with my artwork more closely. I was adding notes from the characters within the gutters between the panels, adding coffee stains and tape. Like the characters themselves had been working on this comic together, retelling their stories and sharing them with the world. And then it just stopped. I didn't give it any sort of announcement, any thank yous or anything, because I wasn't really planning on stopping here, it just kind of happened. Uni was getting busier, I was starting to take commissions, I barely had any time to work on Jailbird, and when I wanted to, I was feeling stuck with the plot because I had very little way in concrete of ideas of what I wanted to do next. I knew what was going to happen in 2 in-story years down the line, but I wasn't sure what was going to happen the next day in the story. I did learn something from this though. I learned that I needed to slow down, look at the bigger picture first before hyper-focusing on tiny details and actually making the story in a visual format. And then I threw all of that out the window when I tried to make an animated series. I had become quietly inspired by a classmate who I didn't really talk to, but I enjoyed watching their work from afar, who was making their own animated show every single day before, during, and after the university day. This is also around the time that indie animation had sort of like that big boom that happened, you know? Lackadais's pilot had just dropped, so I was pretty enamored with the animation industry as a whole at the time. I was also doing an illustration and animation degree, so I figured that I should probably start learning how to do some animation. So I came up with the idea of making an animated pilot for Jailbird. The scope was a little bit smaller. I was only thinking about a single episode pilot now, a single day in the life of the characters I'd created. I made a script, and then another script, and then another, then hired some very, very awesome voice actors to do some voice work for the project.
Hey, Thank you, Ethan. Please don't.
Hey, the straggler! I have to say, you look very comfortable in that other bus. I almost didn't want him to wake you.
It's like I get to look down at all of them. Like I'm above them. Right?
I love you guys, by the way. Haven't forgotten about you. I will be talking to you guys in a bit about the future of Jailbird as well. And it was full steam ahead on production of the pilot. Except one small problem. I had never really done a full start to finish animation workflow before, and it showed in how disjointed the shots were and how disjointed my plans were. I was working on a full storyboard and I made about 170 panels of the storyboard by the time I stopped, but things, like I said before, still didn't look right, or feel right for that matter. You're probably thinking, an animated pilot on your lonesome is a pretty ambitious task. And you are 100% correct. And the long-term prospects weren't fun either. I think at some point I sort of sat down and calculated how long this would take if I kept going at the rate I was going at. Just finishing the pilot was going to take about 3 to 4 years, if not longer. The amount of time investment didn't feel worth it for what I was ultimately going to get out of it at the end. Not saying I wasn't having fun, I was enjoying making the pilot and all of its sections. My lack of focus and the habit of jumping around from shot to shot meant that many shots were left unfinished as soon as I hit a roadblock in their progress. I started working on the pilot as soon as I finished university and graduated. For the first 5 months of that year, I had been working non-stop on a smaller scale animation project for my final graduate show called Beat Breakers, which turned out great, by the way. However, the one thing about art school that nobody really prepares you for is the post-grad burnout. Turns out working yourself to the bone for a degree for 3 years is pretty exhausting. So I actually spent most of my time working on the animated pilot in the middle of a burnout I didn't realise I was having. I realised, I think in about December, 6-ish months after finishing my degree and 4 months into the pilot. And that sort of thing isn't sustainable to work through, so I knew I had to step back for a bit and sort of take a break. So I did step back for an entire year. I didn't actually think about Jailbird all that much in 2025. I'm not someone who draws very quickly, so I didn't even end up drawing them for personal stuff during that time all that much. It was a full-blown, honest-to-God break from Jailbird, which I think is a good thing. It wasn't until I was playing through Hive Swap Friend Sim in a Discord VC with my friends, I had a bit of an epiphany. For the longest time, for as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be someone who would work on games. That was like the thing I wanted to do. A concept artist and character designer working on big games like Overwatch, League of Legends, that kind of thing. Sadly, some things in my life have stopped that from happening, which I am partially thankful for. My university had a game art undergraduate degree, but it was on a campus much further away from home, and I didn't really want to leave home, so I settled for an illustration animation degree instead. The final project I did in uni was actually a game concept, and my original idea was to have a playable demo, before my tutors reminded me to scale back and consider what I could do in a 6-week time frame. Great idea, by the way. Thank you my tutors. What I am saying is, though, is I have done a bit of research into game development and how games are made, but haven't done a proper deep dive. So back to playing Hive Swap Friend Sim on that Discord call. For anyone who isn't aware, Hive Swap Friend Sim is a series of short visual novels based in the Homestuck universe, and they're pretty good. They're okay. I had this epiphany while playing through Lank's route, where I realised that visual novels kind of combine everything that I've been wanting to do with Jailbird. They combine comics, animation, and interactive elements all in one format. A visual novel is kind of perfect for Jailbird. Not to mention it scratches that itch for game development and game art that has never quite gone away in my brain. There is just one teensy little problem. I have never made a game, ever. It seems like I haven't learned my lesson about not making your first project your biggest one. However, like I said at the beginning, this time it will be different. This time I am holding myself accountable, and this video is the first step in that journey. Every few months, I'll be updating you all on my development of Jailbird as it proceeds. From the writing, to the planning, to the designing, the research, the testing, the coding, everything. I'll be starting small. The first goal is to create a playable demo for the game's first chapter, featuring all the game mechanics I intend on adding in the final version of the game. In the background of this video, as I've been yapping away, you've seen Jailbird as it was before, what it is currently, and I hope that very soon I can share what it's going to be like in the future. I am really excited to share my process with you all over the next however long this takes. This is the first video in my Jailbird development log series, and the next episode will be covering the writing and planning aspects, so please do stay tuned if you want to follow the development of this game. And to top off this video, I am very excited to present to you Jailbird's new premise. 365 days can completely change your life. You can start a new career, a new health journey, start a new relationship. But what about starting a new life entirely? Can you go from having nothing to having everything in just 365 days? 9 prison inmates from Triasia's minimum security correctional facility are about to find out. In just 365 days, they will be free once again. New people with new lives, new jobs, and new social circles. All they have to do to achieve this is to keep their heads down, stay out of trouble, and count the days. It just so happens they're not very good at 2 of those things, and they're pretty good at counting. As the cast prepares for their new lives, people and memories from their past begin to challenge their newfound morals, connections, and relationships. Will they make it out? And what happens when overcrowding and ongoing disputes make it so things are too close for comfort? Jailbird is a visual novel that puts you in the hot seat, controlling conversations and actions to ensure the best outcomes, not just for the future, but for the present. Control stress, smarts, and charisma as you help this band of unlikely friends navigate the chaotic world of pre-release. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and sharing it with a friend. Please also do comment any feedback, suggestions, or ideas you might have below, as I am still getting used to making videos again and editing videos and all that stuff, so I have much to learn. If you like art and cute characters, feel free to check out my online shop where I sell many of my wares. Finally, if you want to see more content from me in the future, you can subscribe to ensure you don't miss the next video. Thank you again for listening to this ramble session. I hope to make another one of these Jailbird updates soon, and I think that's everything from me. All the best. Goodbye.